any, thermal therapy, with rounds, there's going to share some sort of brotherhood or sisterhood with sauna. And would you say the temps are pretty comparable to, your YMCA, your home sauna, like 180 Fahrenheit?
Let's see. For me, I remember hotter.
A rancher was telling me his late father used to tell him that, yeah, just over yonder you'd be able to see in the wintertime a flag hoisted up when the Finns started the sauna. And that flag raising up was alerting all the other rancher neighbors that, hey, sauna's happening. You probably want to get over in on this because
Guess who's coming to sauna? Hekilunta. Guess who's coming to sauna? Hekilunta.
Hi, this is Risto here. And before we get started with this episode, I just wanted to give you a quick heads up that some of the audio isn't the best. We're recording in a live location, and so it's a little difficult to hear, but I hope you stay tuned and listen to the whole episode because the content we cover is really good as we talk about Inipi and sauna and the connection in the Northern Plains and with our podcast. And I also wanted to say thank you to our patrons and our followers. We really appreciate the support. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome, everybody. We've got a little impromptu episode of The Upper Bench here. Eero is traveling. Risto, I heard it's pretty frigid in the Midwest. Can you confirm that or deny it?
Confirm, although it started to warm up a little bit today. So we're coming out of the negatives.
Good. And then Eero is in Bismarck, North Dakota, of all places.
That is true, yeah, and I can prove what Risto just said. So we've had some cold weather even though in Finland I should never ever complain about the weather because back home it can be brutal. But New York was cold when I left, and Bismarck was even colder when I showed up. But now it's balmy.
Is it that? Yeah, the phrasing we use on the Northern Plains is it's more exhilarating. It's not cold.
There you go. Well, yeah, exactly. So should I suggest that we just introduce ourselves very briefly, starting with Aaron, a couple of words, not the whole life story from the very beginning.
Yeah, so I was born in, my name is Aaron Barth, and I oversee a couple of cultural heritage nonprofits on the Northern Plains, and the reason I'm explaining that is because one of them resulted in the Eero visiting us and talking about sauna and traditional First Peoples practices of, just for lack of a better term right now, heat therapy and heat practice. It dabbles in it gets into both sort of a secular and non-secular sort of thing too. So, Bobby?
Yeah, Bobby Gray Eagle. I'm a sauna enthusiast, a sweat bather extraordinaire, maybe. I don't know. Not too much about me, considered self-employed, and would like to see a sauna culture fired up here with the Nordic sauna guys here in North Dakota, and have some ideas on trying to get that off the ground with, like I said, the Nordic sauna guys. So,
Neal Brown, and I am honored to be the friend of Bobby. He has introduced me to hot cold therapy, sauna, steam room, and made a big impact on my health, and grateful to be a learner of Bobby.
But part of the reason why I'm here actually is has to do with like the origins of sauna. We've been talking about that a lot, and I would actually wanna. I'm not asking here a lot of questions, but I would ask Bobby. It's like where I'm coming from, and Bobby Gray Eagle is a not very traditional name in my neck of the woods. So could you tell him a bit more?
Yeah. Bobby Gray Eagle is actually my English name. My Dakota name is Ehana Wodako Yepiki. Its translation is the long ago ancestor. I'm from the traditional homelands of would be just south of the Minneapolis area, near the Sisitawa, Wakapetua, Dakota Oyate. But we were expelled in the mid 1860s, somewhere around there. We were expelled, and my tribe now resides in the northeast corner of South Dakota, and they're part of our tribal members go all the way up into Canada. And so when I started listening to the Upper Bench and I started getting turned on to authentic Finnish saunas, I saw a lot of relatable, overlapping. Aaron calls them intersectionalities, and it's fascinating. And Eero was part of a sauna panel yesterday, and as he listened to one of the panelists, he was seeing it too, that there are a lot of commonalities between Finnish style sauna and the Inipi ceremony among the Plains tribes here in this region.
I was explaining that I've been talking about this for 2 days in a row, and then it finally kind of hit me that like talking about the similarities. But when you go back in the day to the real origins of sauna, it's basically the exact spinning, and it's the same thing as the Inipi tradition. So it's unbelievable, because you have to come to North Dakota to understand things like this, honestly.
That's wonderful. And now that's Inipi. How do you spell that?
Inipi, Inipi, Inipi.
No, and what would you say are some of the biggest similarities and biggest differences?
The big one is hearing it on several episodes of the Upper Bench is Eero talking about it's this process of hot and cold, rest and recovery, taking water, doing it again. And that's the same thing. We call them rounds or doors. And you do either 4 of them, sometimes depending on who you talk to. Some folks will say that there's warrior rounds that are like 5 or 6 rounds for those guys that are hardcore sweaters. And those tend to be elders and warriors, like veterans and stuff. But yeah, it depends on the tribe. It's such a rich tradition that different tribes have their different ways of doing it.
Yeah, either warriors or my wife and my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
When we go on vacation and it has a sauna, my wife just hangs out in the sauna all day. It's like 10 rounds, 11 rounds.
Women are strong. I mean, they have the ability to give life, and they can do way more rounds than.
That's a good point. That's a
Right.
good point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we were actually at the panel discussion yesterday. We were talking about the thing that, our latest episode was about the ladies in Finland, about how to bring like sauna closer to women as well. And it always obviously also boils down to these rounds. And so kind of in conclusion, I feel that of course this is debatable, and we're probably going to talk about this even today. But I find that the Inipi tradition is, again, it's closer to the traditional Finnish tradition. And I'm talking about the sauna process than whatever is happening in, say, the United States right now. Many of the one and done folks, it's a different thing. And one thing before I forget is that this is also debatable, but the origins of the word sauna is a pit on the ground. So that's what it means. So it's exactly the same thing. So you heat those rocks in a fire, and you bring those into that pit, and then you cover the pit, and then you go in, and then you do your sauna or inipi.
And that can really be translated to a lot of different things. That any thermal therapy, with rounds, there's going to share some sort of brotherhood or sisterhood with sauna and how we see it today. So is there anything in between the rounds that maybe you guys would do a little bit differently?
One of the big things from my experience, and it's like I said, different tribes do it different ways, but we never left. So we would still be in there. The round is just, what's the book? We were sharing.
So you never exit the.
You don't exit the Inipi, you don't exit the lodge, you stay in there. The door is opened and the air comes in, but you never exit.
Interesting. Yes, I did not know that. Yeah,
I thought maybe there was exiting going on, but
yeah.
Okay. But the door is open, so you get a rush of
and
outside air.
What we're doing today is I'm kind of guiding them through what would be like a native themed experience where they can they have to go and experience like what is it? How do you say the smoke sauna?
Sabu sauna, yes. Yes.
You have to actually go there, and experience it.
Yeah.
Same thing here. If any of them were invited to a traditional Inipi ceremony, they would see those big differences. Like you don't exit until the entire process is done.
And it's always 4 rounds. It's always
4 rounds, and then a lot of the older gentlemen or the warriors will add on. They call them warrior rounds or elder rounds or something like that.
Do you use any plants as part of that? In the Finnish practice, they might use the Vita or the Vasta, or I've even heard of tar, putting tar in the sauna water when you're sick. There's lots of like use of natural leaves and different things as part of the process.
Yeah, in the book The Sacred Pike by Joseph Epps Brown, he talks about how it was explained that you would take a sprig of sage and you would dip it in the water and then you would hit the rocks, and so that aroma would just fill the entire space. And that's what reminded me of the bundle of birch branches.
Yes.
Because that smell is in there too. So it's like they're very relatable.
Well, it gets to the stuff that I like to think about too, in the search and the quest of all of us of in our planet that's just increasingly industrialized and standardized and stuff. And I think each person, if we even do a minimal amount of genuflecting, we want to go to do something that clears us of that mindset, right? And then we want to go, if we can do something as well where there's a local authenticity of place. So you're talking about, Bobby, you're talking about sage. I mean, that is just a part of the ecosystem of the Great Plains, right? The Great Plains ecological biome, sage, you'll find sage growing everywhere on the Great Plains. And Risto, I think you were saying there's, or who was alluding to something, in Finland, there's particular specifics there, right? So I find it both fascinating as the universal of the heat stuff, but then we all have these, depending on your region of the planet, there are these little, these differences, right? These variances.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the sage. I'm originally from California, but now I live in Minnesota. So our family, we've traveled out west a lot and, done family road trips. And we've stopped, I've picked some of the sage from the side of the road, that sagebrush. And we actually brought it back and used some in our sauna. And it was wonderful.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and the different types of sages. I think a couple of different types of sage here. The silver leaf, and there's one that's really long. It's got a really unique smell to it. It's a long leaf. And I've seen the stuff that probably you're talking about, relatives from the desert Southwest had gifted me bundles of their sage, and it just, there's a unique smell to it. So
I put it on potatoes after roasting potatoes on a grill. I put sage on there too. So it must be getting closer to the dinner hour here. Start talking about food.
I feel that as a Finnish person, or Finlander, as they say here, I think we back home in Finland, we kind of lost that for a while. Those aromas, that everything that goes with even though obviously the birds has always been there, the birds, branches and whatnot, they've always been around. But we are like coming back with a vengeance. You can tell that it's like people want to go deeper into that tradition and getting like the full thing. And we've been talking about beef. We've been talking about all kinds of treatments that as of late we've been talking about those. So those are coming also back.
Yeah, go ahead,
So like
Ken.
you were saying, trying, local things and things that you find along the way, be kind of transplanting from the Midwest now down to the Southeast. Citrus is obviously a lot more prevalent. And, I remember talking about citrus in the Banya.
Yeah,
That was
Brian, I think.
Brian. Yeah, Brian. And loved his kind of adventure into different smells and different things, and he wasn't afraid to try anything. So I would, yeah, I would recommend maybe seeing what else you can add in there.
So
Use
how often do you traditionally practice the Inipi, the ceremony or that practice? Is it once a week, once a month? How does that work?
Depends on the tribe and the individual and the family, but it's year round. It's not, we don't just do it. It's not a summer ceremony or thing like that. It's year round. It's happening year round. So for me, I when I go, I would like to do it at least weekly, several times a week. But I can't get home to be where somebody's doing the ceremony. So a lot of urban Indians, if you will, will go to the places where there's environment. So I call this the steam room at the YMCA. I affectionately call it, with the utmost respect, the white man's sweat lodge at the YMCA. But there are other natives that go in there, and I've noticed that they'll go in there a certain amount of rounds too, or a certain amount of doors. And the reason, and my experience of it is, you called it a door, is because the door would open and close. You knew when the round was starting and when the round ended. So somebody else could come up and say, that's those South Dakota tribes. Don't listen to them.
And that's probably a lot more closely related to Banya. It's staying in there, letting fresh air into the room, kind of resetting the steam, if you will, resetting the air. Where I know with it in my house, that door better be right behind you, when I'm going in and out.
Yeah, no, it's just like you can do that in the smoke sauna, if you will, but you can't do it in the modern sauna. You just cannot do it. But there's so much oomph in those rocks that they don't care. They don't care.
And how many rocks is it usually? Like, how big is that pile? They're heated outside of the tent, correct?
Yeah, they're depending on who is leading it. It's by that person that's leading it. It could be a certain number of rocks that go in. So it's not really static. I don't remember how many came into the ceremony that I was in, but you knew when they were coming in, because right when that door closed, they were still glowing. So that's warm. Yeah. So yeah, to answer your question, they were heated at a fire, and they were brought in, and they were put in that hole that you were talking about. So just so many relatable points.
And then do you splash water on the rocks? Can you kind of give us a picture of what that process looks like?
Yeah, so they would splash water on the rocks. They would have certain things that they would do during that time, and then they would go in. Then they would do the prescribed things after the water was done, and then they have a time where it's reflection, depending on what tribe. And so, yeah, it could take another thing that was relatable is when Eero said that this could take 4 hours. I'm like, we are so related to our Finnish relatives.
Yeah.
And if he ever comes back, I would try to line up a ceremony where he could actually be with the elders and see that, and experience that. And I know that they would love that too, because our elders like to talk about the ways that have been given to us by the Creator. If they heard that there was another fellow, and then visiting with them, and like you said on one of the episodes that, after I'm done, I want to have some salty sausage. We have a meal afterwards.
I'm coming.
Right.
No, like, how about next month?
I could drive up.
What would you say the temps are pretty comparable to your YMCA, your home sauna, like 180 Fahrenheit?
Let's see. For me, I remember hotter, and the reason why is because you're in such a small enclosed space. It's a dome-like thing, and I just remember right when the water went on there, it just washed over you, and you're just like. So it's I would say hotter just because of the space itself, how small. you feel you talk about like when you're too close to the heater,
Yeah.
you feel the heat coming from that pit, from that
Radiant heat
Yeah.
that hits you.
you feel that, and then when that wave comes over you, it comes so fast because the ceiling is, the top of the dome or the structure, so you have to crawl to get in there. So
Oh yeah, yeah. So you're north of probably 200 degrees easy then.
yeah.
Have you ever heard of anyone practicing it next to a lake or any bodies of water to incorporate that aspect?
I want to say it is. I think it's in the Sacred Pipe, the Sacred Pipe by Joseph F. Brown's, where he talks about that. It's either that one or Indian Boyhood by Dr. Charles Eastman, but they talked about how it was done near a place of water where they could either go dip in the stream or dip into the lake. So, like Eero was telling us, I usually wait till the end and then.
Yeah. We just, by the way, just for reference, we did our first round, so hence we are closed accordingly, and once we are done here, we're gonna start our second round.
So where are you?
We're up on the second floor of a place that's called The Landing, but right outside of this building is the Missouri River in central North Dakota. And we happen to be, we're in January in the middle of North America, and there's nothing between, like a mountain range between us and the Arctic Circle. So when it does get cold, it gets exhilarating. And of course, like other places, it's I picked up Eero from the hotel where he's staying at earlier this afternoon, and him and I both agreed it was almost hot outside. It's like 12 degrees now.
So this is New York weather.
It's relative. It's relative, right? Yeah.
But the river is frozen, so there's no dipping for us today.
And so is that a sauna hot room behind you?
Oh, this building is a post and beam, rough post and beam construction. So this is the sauna that we're using is actually it's a portable sauna that's on the back outside of a patio, an outdoor patio. So where we're in right now, this building was built and meant to mimic the steamboat warehouses that used to be on the Missouri River before the entire upper Missouri River was dammed, when we used to have a lot more commercial boat traffic. Yeah.
No, that's interesting. No, that's really cool. Are you guys using wood fire today?
No, it's an electric heater. It's
Okay.
an electric heater that we're using today. Yes. And what we're doing fine. It's about 85, 190 that it's heated up to, and plus it's strict.
Yeah.
So we are happy campers. It's made by a company called
Nordak Sauna. Yeah. And they are they're sauna enthusiasts. They hand build them here on the Northern Plains. They do the research. One of the Nordak owner operator members was just in the Helsinki area this last summer to go and, how do you do research? You go and do the research at the real deal, right? You go to Finland. So
Is it a mobile sauna? And then is that accessible for people to use, like the public to use or to rent?
Yeah. You go on, you can book for sessions, in hour blocks at a time. You can book a private, the whole group. It can fit up to 8 people. That would be pretty cozy. But you can fit up to 8 people as a private group booked in hour sessions, or you can just do your unique, 1 hour personal session and anticipate that you're going to be saunaed with other people that you may or may not know. Mm-hmm.
It's not on wheels, so it's not portable in that way. But
yeah.
It's a solid sauna. But yeah, so we've been here for now. Or I've been here for a couple of 3 days already. Now I'm leaving back to New York tomorrow. And again, there's been a lot of talk about sauna, and actually the 3 of us here, we did a radio recording
with the local community access audio, video, radio, Dakota Media Access. We did a recording. Bobby, Gray Eagle, Eero, Kilpie, and myself. And once that is uploaded to the permanent public radio host site, we can share that link because there's a lot of discussion about. We had visuals too. There's a lot of discussion about the comparisons of what Bobby was talking about in Inipi and basically the pre-industrial Finnish sauna, right? Of you, I mean, it's also discussions of, you know, it seems like the closer we get to nature, the clearer we can see. Yes, but I try to keep it short, pithy. But I actually believe that. I believe that. I think that's also an allure of or set of magnetism to it.
Exactly, and obviously these themes, they come again and again and again. But yeah, we're talking about the land, we're talking about the nature, we're talking about the magic, and it's kind of as me, the upper bench folks, we sometimes find it quite hard to try to explain to people that, and there's absolutely no offense, obviously, all kinds of heat therapy are fine, but you don't necessarily find that magic in your basement. So, but by taking that sauna outside, you can, you know, on a good day, you can find that magic in your backyard as well.
Well, yeah, the nice thing about this Nordic sauna is that it has a big picture window in it, and the picture window is facing the upper Missouri River. And right now it's, you know, upper Missouri River frozen. It's very, you know, the state of North Dakota in 2024 has reached unprecedented population in state history. We're at about 740,000 people, so quite rural, right? And so you have, you know, maybe literally, we don't just cue the geese or cue the eagle, but you might see, you know, an eagle or a hawk or some geese cruise by in the air while you're looking out. And yeah, I mean, that's part of it too, right? The analogy of like whenever you've had a perfect meal, and I've heard the upper bench, you guys talk about this, like the actual, the sauna that you remember is not just that specific thing, right? The perfect meal, but it's the context in which it is. It's situated. It's the relationships that you have with people that are there. It's you know, it doesn't matter if it was a perfectly medium rare, you know, filet mignon, or I would prefer porterhouse steak myself, but it's everything that surrounds that too.
You know, one of the other things that I thought was like a relatable point is I can't think of, and I don't think I've ever been told by the elders of my family about an Inipi that was done with one person by themselves. It was done in community. And so that's another relatable point that I see with our Finnish relatives is that, and that's kind of where I'm at, you know. So when you guys do your podcasts or you do your recordings, I was telling Eero that I enjoy it because you have somebody that grew up with it, remembers what it was like as a child, and so he's like an older brother that we can all learn from. It, you know, it has these elements. This is what it. And I think that that's what we as Dakota people like too, is if somebody comes and they want to learn from us, then learn actually all the aspects of it, get the holistic view of it. Yeah. And then you can take the good, like we were talking about, take the good and leave whatever, you know, you don't like this aspect of it, then that's fine too, but we got to learn from one another.
Yeah, and hopefully they take those things and share them with others. And it grows, you know, and then when they think about building their own sauna for the first time or whatever that structure may be, they're doing it with hopefully some culture and heritage in mind, and doing the people that, you know, brought it to them, you know, some justice.
Yeah, I agree, Sam. When I'm sitting in a thing like this, I remember the Finnish relatives, you know, that this is how it came to them, and it took thousands of years to get to this, to get to what we see today. But there's history that we should learn as sauna enthusiasts and sweat bathers, you know.
Amen to that. Seriously, exactly. Like, you know, we have this boom going on right now. We have this boom, but we have to make sure that boom is going to go to the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's similar. You know, let's use analogies too, right? What could go wrong? But if you look at somebody who is scratching below the surface to actually find history, cultural history in the past versus, you know, the fancy history shows you see on public media that are just for sensational public consumption, right? You know when you're being fed one or the other. But the actual serious, deliberate cultural history, we want to know these stories, these origin stories. I think that's the allure of history, as whether it's anybody's doing history, if you're engaging in a dialogue with the past. And so sauna is just an Inipi and discussions of it. It's just that there's a very, people are interested. They want to know more. And I don't think a lot of times we know what questions to ask. Are we allowed to ask questions about that sort of stuff? I think I know it's important to have these conversations, and maybe it's like learning a second or a third language, right? I'm going to fall on my face a few times, and I hope that I have friends around, just that'll laugh. We can all laugh together about maybe some silly question that I asked. It's like, oh yeah, okay, that was kind of dumb, right? Sorry about that. but how do we connect with people? How do we do that? I think it's through these. I know it's through these conversations. I absolutely know it.
We have a local. He's wrote several books. Joseph M. Marshall III. He's from Standing Rock, so he's Lakota. I'm Dakota. I'm the Eastern tribe. He's Lakota. They're on the end of the circle. We're known as the Ocheti Shakoni, 7 Council Fighters, or as the United States called us, the Great Sioux Nation. But he teaches, Joseph M. Marshall III teaches that there needs to be some type of accessible entry where young people can come in. So when a child would lift up the tent and look inside where the men are sweating at, or whoever's in there and they're sweating, they weren't shooed away. They were allowed to come into that space and see what's going on. And so I think that's an aspect of kind of what you're talking about too.
That's something that emerged from our sauna Inipi discussion yesterday too, where the question was asked, how young within the Finnish sauna and the Inipi, how young can people start participating or practicing this? And Eero said, 6 months. For a Finn, it's 6 months, right? And then it was just what you said, Bobby. It's whenever there's the young human being is curious about this stuff, right? Like, what are the adults doing? And so that's the time. And another thing that emerged on that theme too is that you take the little one's lead. If the little one wants in and out of that sauna or the Inipi, they get to come and go as they please. It's not like, you got to stay locked in here and for or whatever, right? But I think that's why am I saying this? That's a powerful message too. When we're little humans, and we all were at one point, otherwise we wouldn't be here, but we're all little humans, it puts the sort of the children at center stage of that immediate society, that immediate culture. And that's whether you're in Finland or on the Northern Plains with the First Peoples, that's a beautiful thing too.
We've been talking a lot about spirituality here during these past couple of days, and now, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but now, if you got, like in a Finnish style sauna, if you get that sauna magic, say it's dark outside, you can see the stars clearly, the Milky Way and everything, it becomes spiritual automatically. You just cannot avoid it. It's speaking to you. Having said that, and this is the part that I need your help with. Inipi is a spiritual thing, but it's also a private thing. So there's a clear difference. So you were referring that there was somebody here around, like from Finnish ancestry, who raised a flag.
Yes, so I'm full disclosure too. By professional training, I'm a historian of the Northern Plains, and so I scratched a little bit of the surface over the last couple of months and found, the different Finnish settlements at the turn of the 19th century here on the Northern Plains. In Minnesota, it would be the Iron Range, would be a very typical spot for Finns, right? But here in the Northern Plains, about 20 miles away, there is a Finnish homestead. And this is through oral history. That's just a rancher was telling me his late father used to tell him that, just over yonder, you'd be able to see in the wintertime a flag hoisted up when the Finns started the sauna. And that flag raising up was alerting all the other rancher neighbors that, hey, sauna's happening. You probably want to get in on this because it's, we only got 4 months of winter left. So, I mean, what else are we going to do?
Yeah, that might have been their chance for hot water that day.
That's a wonderful story. I'd like to, after this episode, we need to connect. I would like to hear more about that because the stories are the rich aspect of it, you know. And sauna, like we keep saying, what's going to be useful for sauna in the future is having a robust practice that people are initiated to that is passed down to the subsequent generations. You know, just me going to sauna at my gym, that's not necessarily going to be passed down to my kids and my grandkids and those kind of things. And I think I've shown this before, but there's, you know, books like this says sweating with the fins. You know, it's just filled with stories
Yeah.
of, just like you said, really interesting and rich stories of this sweating practice.
I think it's beautiful if we can go into spaces like this, the Finnish style sauna. I think that there's a healing that could happen in this country too. And this is going to be me waxing spiritual. I think that right now we're talking past one another in America, and we actually are on our phones and we're getting all our dopamine hits. We need these spaces where we can go and learn from one another. And this gift that has been given to our relatives, the Finnish people, could be one of the salves that helps heal the world in America. So I'm full on board. Like I said, with the Nordic Sauna guys and others that are all plugged in, we hope to get one start really thriving culture going on here. I'm seeing Eero a lot more.
One sauna at a time. Yeah.
One soul at a time, unfortunately.
Yeah, can't agree more, guys. It sounds like you guys are on the right track, and I definitely give my seal of approval for what you're doing out there because it sounds great and it sounds
Up here too. So
yeah, absolutely. So next. So I actually I spent a little time in Fargo, North Dakota growing up, but that was about as far west as I got. But I do have some close relatives in western North Dakota as well.
you know, there's a good chance that if you start telling me names, if I don't know them, I'll know somebody who does know them. So
Those are the kind of people to know.
yeah, yep.
Risto, what else can you ask them today? What else is burning in the back of that brain of yours? I can see the wheels spinning.
Well, the wheels are always spinning. That's what's good about sauna. Sometimes it stops those wheels. So,
Right.
so, Neal, you haven't spoken much. I'd like to hear from you as kind of one of the newbies. What attracted you to this? What do you love about it? What was it like to learn about sauna?
I think really the spiritual practice. My faith is hugely important to me, and being in a space where way fewer distractions, but Bobby has taught me a number of things. Square breathing, which was something that I think you took from Navy SEALs. Yeah. And just the focused, controlled breathing in the midst of the 4 sessions. It's been really more of a spiritual practice for me. Every session I start out, and this is all from you, but I pray for myself, my spouse, and my family, in my marriage. The second round, I actually pray for family and extended family. The third round, I always pray for the community, specifically the leaders. I start with, mayor or city council, things of that nature. And then in the final round, it's just sort of whatever does pop in my mind. But it's very much a spiritual activity for me. And it's become one of the more powerful places for me to hear from God. It's really been significant in my walk with Jesus.
Yeah, it's hard to, we've talked about this already, but it's hard to find that space in just our crazy, our crazy life. Like every spare second is filled with some sort of, phone or television or whatever it is.
As we're sitting here on this, talking, we can maybe all hear our phone vibrate a little bit, right? Like, oh, I'll get to that later. But Neal, it's like what you're saying is detaching from just the relentless. We are in an attention economy, right? Everything is grabbing at our attention, and we need to disconnect from that, and we need to go into these. We need to nobody has time to do it. You got to make time to do it. You need to do this stuff.
Yeah, and Neal has been really good at bringing other people on board too. Hey, you got to come. It's not an authentic one, but the steamer at the Y, and he's been bringing people there too. So I think that's really how culture promulgates. Really, is it's passed on from one person to another. They feel your passion. One of the other things that was an interesting point that I brought up to Eero was what I see of sauna today. And both Finn and American, what's been happening now is it's been scrubbed of its spirituality. But what I see among like Inipi ceremony in the Great Plains here is that a lot of our members are not going to it. So there are people that practice the ceremony, but it should be involved in our life a bit more. So like our Finnish relatives, the American style sauna is scrubbed of its spirituality, but for like my tribe, I know that someone I know has said, I wish some of the young people would come to the ceremony. They would come to Inipi, but they're not coming, And so there is this place where we're related there too.
Yeah, I got. And one more, since we're all chatting here, just kind of a rough definition that works in my head for spirituality, and I mentioned this at the Sauna Inipi panel yesterday, is that. And this is a story it just so happened, these things NPR had a story the other day. They did there's some very systematic study of people and their belief structures and stuff. And they're identifying the folks that said they're spiritual. They don't go to actual religious practice, once a week or 5 times a day or that sort of stuff, but they're spiritual. And they worked up a definition of spiritual, and it was simply, and I mean this in a beautiful way, believing in something that's bigger than oneself. If that is through fellowship or connections with one another, that sort of thing, where we're, Bobby, as you say, not talking past each other, but we're listening to one another. That works.
And that's obviously sauna is a highway. It is very easy to achieve in a sauna.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it truly doesn't have to be anything more or less than that. It can be your space of mental positivity. Are you trying to be empty? Are you trying to plan? Are you trying to just be away from the phone? Or are you trying to connect? Whatever your goals for sauna, I think sometimes we all might change our goals for that. But at the end of the day, is it a positive thing in our life or not?
I even hear it from my wife. I get a little grumpy. She's like, I think you need to go over to the steam room. Yeah.
Here's your keys.
Bye, honey.
Well, I don't know if there's anything else for you guys if you want to chime in, but we at the upper bench love connecting with you guys and have appreciated all your comments and the feedback. And it's nice to now we kind of have a formal like geographical connection with you. So
absolutely. Yeah. And please, we'll give you the most deliberate hospitality whenever the upper bench can make it here, and listeners of the upper bench as well. And I would be, I want to do my due diligence too and thank for all, for Eero to come here. It was a confluence of nonprofits that work together, of that sort of thing. There's the American Scandinavian Foundation out of New York City that granted money through our local Sons of Norway Sverdrup Lodge. And it was the Northern Plains National Heritage Area, the Missouri Valley Heritage Alliance, and the Fort Abraham Lincoln Foundation, and Nordak Sauna that helped bring all this about. So those organizations are important. Cultural heritage organizations are important for that reason.
And of course, American Scandinavian Foundation is very, I know extremely well, because I'm actually, right before I left here, I was in contact with them. We were actually arranging a children's concert there on February 16th. And I forgot at the radio thing, I forgot to mention that if there are going to be people from North Dakota listening to this episode. So I was just in contact with the Consul General of Finland, who is in New York, but this is the North Dakota is also his area. So the the ambassador Jarmo Sareva says hello to all people here. It's been truly a pleasure to be here, and also one thing I'm so vain that I have to bring this up. So it can't be only me. Say that it's not only me, but a lot of people I talk to, they like the Upper Bench podcast, and I'm extremely humbled. There's a guy named Bobby Gray Eagle, whom I met a couple of days ago. He says he's a fan. And I will go like, what's wrong with you, man?
There are a lot of talking heads out there, but very rarely do you get somebody that actually grew up with it. That's why I keep coming back. And you guys are a really good group that plays off one another. It feels like conversation.
Truly, yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah, we just really want to have a good conversation about sauna and just the people in and around it. And gentlemen, yeah, thank you guys. Thank you to our listeners. This has been, a great way to spend a Sunday afternoon.
We're gonna hit the sauna now. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Take care. Have a great
Thank
sauna.
you.
Yeah, good sauna too. Live and let sauna.